Hello and welcome to my life skills presentation. My presentation is about traveling post-stroke. So let's go ahead and get started. Some of my objectives are, by the end of this presentation, participants will be able to identify strategies for traveling after surviving a stroke, distinguish between safe and non-safe traveling techniques, and recognize the relevance of safety and planning ahead before traveling. So first things first, above all, safety. Please get cleared by your doctor for traveling. While traveling, your biggest and main priority should be safety. It's the most vital thing post-stroke, and especially while doing new things, going to new places and traveling around. And whether you're traveling long distance or if you're flying or anything along those lines, it's important. And it's important to ensure that your health comes first. And overall, there's not a one-size-fits-all guideline for traveling. It really just depends on you and your own personal situation, and it can depend on where the stroke occurred in your brain, what your precautions are, all that good stuff. So just to be safe, you should always just talk to your primary physician before traveling anywhere. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and begin and talk about some prepping before traveling. I love packing lists. I think they make everything more organized, make your packing go more smoothly, so you're not just sitting there wondering, should I bring this, should I not bring this? So first thing is obviously clothing, accessories. You should probably look ahead of what the weather's supposed to be like before you travel anywhere. You don't want to show up with a winter jacket and never use it. It's just unneeded space. Toiletries are, of course, important. Carry-on items. I love to bring carry-on items such as food. Food is a big thing for me. Instead of paying $20 for a water bottle at the airport, you can bring your own. I brought in on my last flight some chips and chicken nuggets, stuff like that. You obviously cannot bring liquids on, but bring a water bottle and fill it up once you go past TSA. Some packing might seem self-explanatory, but you get to where you're going and you're like, wow, I wish I would have thought of that beforehand. And having a packing list will just help ensure that you're prepared and really ready for travel. Another thing are Ziploc baggies. So if you have limited manual dexterity, a Ziploc bag is perfect and it can come in handy while traveling. When going through airport security, put your wallet and the contents of your pockets into the Ziploc bag and then put the bag on the security belt, and it just helps avoid having to retrieve individual items from the bin, which can take extra time, and then there's a line behind you and you're just anxious and ready to go, but you're having to pick up 20 different things. So it's a really good idea to keep everything just right there. Now, medications. So if you're traveling across time zones, ask your pharmacist for advice about the timing of your specific medications, specifically around the new hours, and tell them exactly what hours you're going to be in, what times you usually, which they should already know, what times you usually take your medications, just so you don't end up accidentally just overlapping medications and whatnot. And also bring extra medications for any bumps in the road, such as delays in travel. And then also bringing copies of your prescription is smart in case you need it while you're off or you lose it and you just end up needing it. It's always a good idea. You rather be safe than sorry. Current rules on liquids in hand luggage says you can take up to 100 milliliters. However, you can carry liquid medication of more than that 100 milliliters as long as you have a doctor's note. So if some reason you need liquid medication, carry that doctor's note, bring it through, you shouldn't have problems as long as you have that note. Also, mobility aids. This is a really big one too. Foot braces, hearing aid, transfer bench, all those good things. Because airline personnel may not be familiar with your personal and particular assistive device. So consider bringing written instructions, detailing the assembly and stowage of your device, and then taking a picture of your device before traveling anywhere. So if it somehow gets bent, misshapen, whatever, you know, and have that proof that it was in a certain shape before you left, you expect it to be in the same shape after you leave and get back. Next, we have a traveling itinerary, my personal favorite. We have an example on the right-hand corner. As you may know, a stroke can affect memory and some processing abilities, but bringing a detailed schedule can make it easier to stay on track while traveling. Go ahead and type up that travel itinerary by date and time, including all the information about your flights, hotel, address and phone, car rental information, confirmation numbers, and anything else that will be important to you and your trip. Give copies to your families, pet sitter, pack a copy and keep one on hand. This to me is just like one of the most vital things while traveling, especially post-stroke. You need a set schedule. You need to know when you can have specific things and where you're going to be going. You want to plan and make time for specific needs, such as taking your medications. So like I said, make those copies, make them for your specific needs. You can plan dining activities and lodging. It also just helps save time, so you don't get to where you're going. You're like, where should we eat? This sounds good, but that sounds good. No, like you have the plan and you can stick to it. Obviously, there's always sometimes that you're like, well, we want to do this, so you don't have to specifically stay on track every single day, but you still have the idea and you have that planning to be able to follow. So another huge thing is to plan designated breaks and pit stops. As you know, it is easy to become fatigued, so these breaks will give you a chance to recharge and be ready for the next activity. And when it comes to restroom breaks, try for every about 2 hours or so. This also helps with getting your body moving and your blood flowing, so your body isn't as mad at you towards the end of the travel time. And now we're still on prep before traveling. I just want to let everyone know about the Air Carrier Access Act. It's a law that makes it illegal for airlines to discriminate against passengers because of their disability. Airlines are also required to provide passengers with who have disabilities with many various types of assistance. And this includes wheelchair or other guided assistance to board, deplane, or connect to another flight, seating accommodations, assistance that meets the passenger disability related needs, and assistance, like I said, with lodging and stowing of those assistive devices. This is a link. If you feel that an airline has discriminated against you on the basis of your disability, which may include not providing you required accommodations, you may file a complaint with the Department of Transportation. This link will take you exactly to where you need to go to file that complaint. I just think this is very important. Some people don't know that this is a law and the airlines have to specifically follow it. So very, very important while traveling. Now we're moving on to while you're actually in the midst of traveling. My biggest thing, be informed and be prepared. That is just so, so, so important. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. An airline may require that a passenger with a disability provide the airline with up to about 48 hours of advance notice and to check in at least 1 hour before their flight if you wish to receive any of the following services, types of equipment or accommodations. So some of those things may look like a hookup for a respirator to the aircraft, hazardous materials, packaging for a wheelchair battery or other assistive devices, medical oxygen for use on board the aircraft. Some airlines won't allow you to, so it just depends on if the service is offered by that specific airline. Transportation for a powered wheelchair on an aircraft, and provision of an onboard wheelchair on an aircraft that does not have an accessible lavatory. And this last one here says accommodation for a group of 10 or more individuals with a disability. So if the American Stroke Foundation wanted to go on a trip somewhere and we can't just show up with 10 people who need accommodations and just expect them to be able to fit those accommodations for us, we need to give a good notice in advance and let them know what is going on. Still, while on traveling, air travel, getting around the airport. So request a wheelchair. If your stroke has slowed you or your walking pace, if walking is difficult, request a wheelchair. It's the fastest way to get to the gate and helps you to get around all the busy people, all the traffic that's going on. Be sure to get to the airport plenty early though, at least 3 hours ahead of time. Contact your airline ahead of time and request wheelchair assistance at your arrival. So once you get dropped off or however you're getting to the entrance of the airport, they typically can meet you there and whatnot. And then another big one is apply for TSA pre-check. This allows you to avoid having to take your shoes off when going through airport security, which I think is huge because a lot of survivors of stroke have AFOs, different assistive devices that it's a pain to take on and off and then put back on. Like it's just a lot. And also aids to fatigue if you're having to do all those tasks. It also can be a lifesaver if wheelchair assistance isn't available. And then air travel while you are on the plane. If you have reduced mobility, typically airlines have facilities to help you move through the airport and get on and off the plane. And most airlines will carry 2 items of mobility equipment for free. This should be in addition to your baggage allowance. And if you have a wheelchair, it will be stored in the hold also. Again, contact the airline to discuss your specific requirements and any additional help you may need. And that 48-hour mark is really that sweet spot that you want to be looking forward for talking to them in advance. Airline crew are not able to provide personal care, and the airline may insist that you travel with a companion that can help you. So if you're unable to eat, if you are unable to fully understand safety precautions or their briefings, and if you're not able to reach emergency exits without help. I think it's a good idea to travel with a companion in general anyway, especially if you have had a stroke. It makes traveling a lot easier, but again, always contact the airline. And one of the biggest things too that people have a question on is, can the airline provide advanced seat assignments for passengers with disabilities? Yes, they can. And depending on the type of seating method, depending on what aircraft you get on, your airline uses in your particular disability related needs, you may be required to ask for a specific type of seating accommodation, and this is more than 24 hours in advance, or check in 1 hour before the standard check-in time for the flight. So that means getting to the gate where you need to be a full hour. So giving, again, the airline enough time to make those accommodations for you. Okay. So while you're traveling, your blood circulation is so important to keep moving, especially during a flight. The pressure inside the airplane cabin is lower than it is on the ground. So when you fly, you have a little bit less oxygen in your blood than normal, and this may affect certain people with heart problems or breathing conditions. So again, ask your doctor if this applies to you. Even ask your doctor if you don't think it applies to you. Just, it's always good to, again, rather be safe than sorry. And then inactivity while traveling. On a long flight, you're likely to be inactive for a period of time, depending on obviously how long the flight is, etc., which makes you more likely to develop a DVT, which is a deep vein thrombosis. It's a blood clot in the vein, and typically usually in the legs, and in your legs, that's right what you're sitting on while you're flying. So it gives a lot of time for that blood to pool and accumulate. So the best way to reduce the risk of a DVT on any long journey, even short journeys, no matter what you're doing, is to drink plenty of water and to stay active. Simple exercises like flexing your ankles or walking around will improve your blood flow. Do this regularly during the journey. So kicking your feet out, doing little kicks with your feet, bringing your knees up, flexing your hips, bringing your legs out to the sides. Moving is so important in general, and specifically while traveling too. Also, important note, some travelers wear compression socks during a flight. It's a good idea, but if you have peripheral artery disease, you would not want to wear them. This condition reduces blood flow in your legs, so wearing these may reduce the overall blood flow too much. And again, if you typically wear compression socks, if you have any precautions, contradictions, always ask your doctor before you're traveling. It's just the best idea for yourself. And some things to know: if you self-identify as a passenger with a disability who needs additional time or assistance to board the plane must allow you to board the plane before other passengers. So while boarding the plane, you're first to get on, like in that first flight of people. And then advise the flight attendants if you need assistance stowing or retrieving any of your carry-on luggage or assisted devices during the flight. And then if you do not request assistance before your flight, but then you're like, oh, I'm not feeling so well, whatever it may be, and you realize during your flight that you'll need assistance at your destination or connecting city, notify the flight crew and tell them, hey, I will need assistance. I'm not feeling as well as I thought I was, or I thought I was going to be able to do X, Y, or Z, and now I'm realizing it might be a little bit of a stretch. So let them know, and they will be able to accommodate you. And if you need wheelchair assistance while getting off the aircraft, you should know that airlines generally provide this assistance after all other passengers have deplaned. So even if you take a longer time and need specific help, whatnot, accommodations, they will allow everyone else to get off, because we all know it's apparently a race to see who can get off the plane the fastest. And so instead of you getting trampled over or someone somehow getting mad at you because you're taking too long and don't realize, they just have you wait. And this honestly makes it a little easier on yourself, because then you don't feel the pressure of everyone waiting on you or looking at you and whatnot. They make you wait. You do what you need to do, find the accommodations you need, and then you get off the airplane. I did have a question when I did this presentation live about, I was on an airplane and I needed to get to my connecting flight and they made me wait, and I was scared that I was going to miss my connecting flight. I do not believe that she told them that she had a connecting flight. So again, advocate for yourself. Tell them beforehand or tell them on the flight and say, I honestly, tell them beforehand, before you even get on the flight, to make things easier on yourself. Again, that's just my biggest advice to you, is be prepared. And so tell them before and say, I have a connecting flight. Waiting for everyone to get off the aircraft is just not going to work for me. I might miss my connecting flight, whatever it may be. Verbalize your concerns, your accommodations, and advocate for yourself. And again, they should be helpful in those areas. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that specific example too. So while you're at the destination, stay in a handicapped accessible room. Staying in a hotel is typically better than staying at a friend's place or family, depending on their specific home situation. Now, if everything in their home is handicapped accessible, by all means, amazing. But a lot of people's homes are not handicapped accessible. So, and it may just make it more difficult to be comfortable while you're traveling. And it's especially important to have grab bars in a bathroom for safety, by the toilet, by the tub. And it just say, again, we go back to what I first stated in the presentation, safety must come first. And then another tip is places, book the hotel or where you're staying that is near where you want to go. Look for places that have restaurants, restaurants nearby, and when possible, choose places that are in easy walking distance to sightseeing attractions. View the lodging space prior to booking. Almost everything's online these days. Sometimes we know that lodging places like to make it look a little bit nicer than it really is, but use your resources, call ahead. They usually have pictures or videos of their online rooms and their whole lodging space, and this will help you decide if that specific place is right for you. And then, like I said, contact them and call them, ask them any questions you may have, any concerns. Tell them about your situation, see what they can do for you. Ask about the toilet height, the bed situation, how the setup looks. If the setup isn't accessible for your own specific needs, a lot of the times they can move the furniture around for you. So again, advocate for yourself, ask them what they can do for you, and just make your experience a lot easier on yourself. So I decided to add in some evidence-based practice. The article is Activity Participation in the Quality of Life 6 months post-stroke. The objective was to estimate the extent of activity and participation of individuals 6 months post-stroke and their influence on health-related quality of life and their overall quality of life. The conclusion was that almost 50% of the community dwelling stroke population lived with some sort of consequence from their stroke, such as unless there's a full-time and able-bodied caregiver at home, they needed some form of assistance and help throughout their daily lives. And a large proportion is also reported that they lack meaningful activity, indicating a need for organized support groups for people with stroke. Otherwise, boredom will lead to depression and worsening of function, health status, and quality of life. So the part that I specifically want to focus on is the lack of meaningful activity can lead to depression, worsening of function, and quality of life. So for me, traveling is one of my meaningful activities. That's what makes me happy. It really is something true to my heart. I love it so much. It might not be yours. Traveling might not be something that you personally enjoy, and that is completely okay. We're all made different. We all have different focuses and what we truly like. But what I'm saying is try to find and continue to find meaningful activities for yourself. And if you take one thing away from this presentation is to continue to find those meaningful activities. And like this article states, your quality of life is going to be better when you have meaningful activity in your life. So that is the end of my presentation. I would like to thank you all for watching.